Hey everybody, this is the Sliders Review, and I'm here today to talk to you about the controversy surrounding the colorism of Aaron Pierre's casting of Jon Stewart for the Green Lantern television show. So I heard, just like everybody else, that Aaron Pierre is going to be Jon Stewart, and I don't remember him. But then I looked him up. And somebody said that he was in Krypton season 1. And I watched Krypton season 1, which one day I'm going to talk about, because I've been wanting to talk about that for a while. Because now it's on Tubi, so I can rewatch it and get my bearings and stuff. But, for the most part, season 1, that show was interesting. Like, it was not what I was expecting. It was just kind of sad and depressing, and it should have been a little bit more, but I always knew it was never going to work out. How can you have a show without Superman? How can you have a show with Superman's great grandfather and nobody has no powers? Everything was just so different with that show, but it's just something I wanted to talk about and stuff. I could not get into season 2. So I know Lobo showed up, that's about it. Anyway, he's in Krypton season 1, but I don't remember him. And so the whole discussion online is he's not dark enough. And that has agitated a lot of people. Because, of course, in Hollywood, when they cast a black person, they normally go for the lighter skinned person or a biracial person. Now, before I say anything, let me just say that for people who have a rational mind, I'm not talking about the people who are part of the anti-woke mob and everything. Those people don't matter. And I'm not talking about the people who say it's about the story and not the casting and color shouldn't matter. I'm not talking to you either, because apparently you're closed-minded. I'm talking about the rational people and the people who are afraid to talk about this because they're all like, well, I'm not part of the black community, so I really shouldn't say, or I have an opinion and blah, 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 and I'm not the best person to talk about it. Well, as a black man myself, and as a black man who is dark and everything, I'm not super dark. I'm not Rick James type dark. Nothing like that. But I'm dark. And I also have a little bit of a light complexion to me, just a little bit, depending if enough sun hits me or not. And plus, because one of my ancestors from back in the day was a white man who assaulted one of my relatives and everything. And that kind of blended our, our skin tones and our bloodline and everything. And also I have some Native American people in my bloodline from the ancestor days, but I also got tons of black people, you know what I'm saying? And a lot of my people, from what I've been told, are from the Caribbean, I think, something like that. I don't know, the ancestors and stuff. But I'm black, I'm dark, and I got a bit of a light complexion. I'm like a dark light brown, I guess you could say. And I have talked about black representation plenty of times on my channel, mostly during Black History Month. Sometimes I make a video about it. I talked about certain celebrities that are black and casted in a show and their light complexion, and I have explained why Hollywood has done that. And so before I say anything on this topic, but like I said before, this is a very sensitive topic, and I wish everybody would just take a breather and truly think about this, and think about why you feel the way you do, and also think about the people you are talking about. Because one of the things I've talked about, back in the day when I did my Black History template and a presentation of why representation matter, I posted a picture of something similar like this. Believe it or not, these people are black. They don't look it, but they are black. And they are mixed, to be more Pacific and everything. And so, I've said, in the past, we never hear from these people. Like, you never hear them talk about their blackness. You never hear them talk about their struggles. If they had struggles, you never hear them talk about if they didn't have struggles. We never hear about what it's like for them being black. So most people assume it's like peachy keen for them, but that's not always the truth. They go through it just like all of us. Sometimes they get it worse because they look white, but then people see their parents and then they act the stereotypical prejudice way they do, and it's really hurtful for these young kids growing up and everything. And so, like, many of them have stories to tell, but they just don't tell them. So you never know what a person is going through or how they've gone through something because they just keep their mouth shut because sometimes it's just too painful. And for the most part, we don't even know if they like even being half black and everything because we never hear from them. But every once in a while, you will hear from at least one person and stuff. And I'm not going to name no names because I'm not in front of the computer right now. And I don't have time to butcher these people's names. I'll say what projects they're in so you can look them up by that. But this one actress right here, she was recently in Slasher season 4. I forget what season 4 is called. Was it called The Reaper? I can't remember. But it's season 4. No, Blood and something, I think. Flesh and Blood or something like that. But season 4. And so, in the show, as you can see, she looks the way she does. Looks pretty white, right? And then in the show, she had a black mother and a white father. And I'm just like, how is she black? And I just couldn't figure it out. Then I read an article, and the actress stated in her acting career, this was the first time she's ever gotten to play a biracial black character. Because every other time you see her on screen, she plays a white girl and everything. And that is because she cannot pass as a typical looking black person. And I can't remember what the article, but the rest of it said, but I think she said she was happy to finally get to play that and everything, because it's who she is. I can't really remember, so I'm just paraphrasing. Or wishful thinking, I should say. But anyways, so when I go back to that other picture I told you about, these people will never get to play a black person for the most part on screen, because every time I've seen them in a project, they have played white people. And some of them probably will love to play a biracial person. Or they will probably love to play like Storm or Vixen or like Jon Stewart or like Static or something like that, but they'll never get that opportunity to do that because they don't look the certain way, even though it's in their blood. And so I do feel sad for them if that's one thing that they hope to do. And because that one person I told you about before, this is the first time she ever played a biracial person and stuff. Now, with that said, there are other people who are just black and just happen to be light skinned, but are not biracial. Take Kim Whitley, I think that's her name is. She is black. She has 2 black looking parents, but as you can see, she is light skinned. And I read an article that I'm going to talk more about in February, to where it was painful for her growing up because everybody picked on her because of her light skin complexion, and especially when they saw her mom next to her and stuff. She was bullied constantly, and she felt like she just wasn't good enough, and she felt like she just could not fit in. She couldn't even fit in her own community, and she's black, because when people look at her, she looks like she's mixed and everything. Some people just have that light skin complexion. And so when talking about race and everything, you gotta be sensitive about it because you just don't know what a person has gone through or, how they might react. Similar to that of Raven Simone, a woman who is black, whose parents are black, but she came out looking like a light complexion. She's always been a light complexion. Many people assume she's mixed. And so she doesn't even consider herself black. She says she's dark white because this woman has a disdain towards black people. There are many articles where she has talked down about black people. She has talked down about black people on television when she was on The View. I hate this heifer. Anyway. And so, she has stated, which I will also talk about in February, that to get certain roles, she tans her skin. She goes out, she gets a tan, and she's darker. And Disney told her, hey, stop that tanning. And they told her it's because of the lighting of the camera and it doesn't reflect well. I call BS on that. Okay, that is true. Lighting is everything when it comes to that of the camera. But there have been dark-skinned folks on television too, and they have had no problem. Disney is just being Disney. And so, that's because of what Hollywood wants you to think of in terms of what a black person should look like in their minds, or better yet, the minds of white people, so it don't offend them and everything. Now, since the beginning of time, white people have been racist. And if that triggers you, then I suggest that you create a time machine, go back from the 1950s and back, and then shut up. And you will see why I said that. Now, not every single last one is, but the good majority of the entire population was racist for centuries and everything. And even as time started to get better, which took too long in my opinion, I'm sorry, but after slavery was over with, why did it take hundreds and hundreds of years for y'all to calm the F down? It literally took until the 1980s just for y'all to finally be cool with black people and stuff. I'm not even joking. I'm not. I'm laughing. But I'm not joking. I'm just a laugher. It took y'all till the 1980s to calm down and finally accept black people. Now, ever since television has begun, it's interesting because in the 50s, whenever they would have a black person on there, or the 60s, or the 70s and the 80s, you actually saw dark-skinned black folks on television. And then, you would have a couple of light skin pop up here and there, or a couple of biracials pop in here and there, but for the most part, it was always dark. Then somewhere in the 90s, Hollywood started to experiment for some bizarre reason. And they started casting more, a couple of light-skinned black people, some biracial and stuff. And then in the 2000s, it just started growing and growing and growing. I said before, when I talked about a Goosebumps show back in the day, that I was very shocked and surprised because there was this one episode, Chillology, and the two boys in there were light-skinned black kids. They might have been biracial, and their parents were somewhat pretty dark. And I'm just kind of how the heck did these two dark people make this light-skinned person? Then there was another episode, the pumpkin one, where the parents were dark and the daughter was biracial and everything. And I'm just that doesn't make no biological sense. And I never understood that as a teenager growing up. So this is when I first started to see that, happen. Because, like, if you go back to like the 80s, say like a different world had a plethora of different skin complexions of black people. There was some that was dark, there was some that was dark light skin, there was some that was just straight up light skin, there was some that was really light skin and everything. But they had a different array of different black people to show that, hey, look at all our different complexions and everything. And then, so like I said before, in the 90s, they started, it was still more dark skinned people. Somewhere around the mid, late 90s. Then in the 2000s, you started seeing more and more light skinned black people show up. And the reason for this is simple. It's because Hollywood did not want to offend white people. And I say that because one, is the truth, and two, we have to go back to Star Trek, the original series. And in Star Trek, the original series, you had diversity in that show. You had white people, you had a Jewish man, you had a Russian man, you had was he Chinese or Japanese? I can't remember. I think George is Japanese. And then you had a black woman. But then not only that, you actually had a white woman on the bridge as well. Now, in the original at that time unaired pilot that has now been aired now, there was another female on the bridge by the name of Number One. And Number One was a woman. And the executives told Gene Roddenberry, hey, no man is going to want to see a woman at the front of the bridge, in front of the man, and in front of the captain. So he had a choice. Does he get rid of the black woman, or does he get rid of the white woman? Well, the white woman, he was actually banging. And there are rumors he was banging the black one as well. But everybody knew about the white one he was doing. So, not show favoritism and everything, he got rid of the white one. And guess where he put the black one at? Way, 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 way in the back. Way behind the captain. Sometimes you can't even see her. And that's because, one, she had two things against her. One, she was black, and two, she was a woman. And so the executives literally did not want a woman at the front of the bridge, because the front was where like helm and I think tactical was at, and they did not want to see a woman there. And so he literally changed his show just to make those executives happy, because they wanted to make the white viewing audience, mainly the white men, happy, because it was the 1960s and everything. So yes, this is in fact a true fact. And they have stated that when doing like commentaries and stuff like that. Now, what does that have to do with the 90s, when the 90s was so accepting of black people? Well, there's always going to be some who aren't. And there are going to be some, see, white people are the driving force of TV viewership and movie ticket sales. And well, there are those who, they just don't like those dark people and everything. And they're just like, why they gotta have the blacks in there and everything. And so the executives, they kind of fear that, going back from the older days, because these executive people and these casting people are old, and they're from like these older sitcoms and television shows, and they still got that old mentality in them. So after a while, you started to see more light-skinned black people in many, many projects. And some of them would be biracial. And this was to not offend white people watching it, because a lot of white people don't like dark people and stuff. A lot of white people don't date people of color. So they figured, hey, if we have a black person here and they're pretty dark and everything, people might not accept that, and we need this show or this movie to do very well and everything. So we're gonna have to substitute some coloration in there. And this is still going on till this day. Let me give you some current examples of many newer television shows And newer movies that have either came out or are about to come out, and I mean recent, where there's a black person there who's front and center as the main character, and you just happen to notice, hey, there's a black person there, but hey, they're really light skinned and everything. Or hey, they got that really nice curly hair, which hey, that normally only happens with biracial black people and stuff. Because real black folks got nappy hair. And when I say real black folks, I don't mean that they're less black. What I'm saying is by real, just the dark skinned ones and stuff. Because Hollywood wants to reprogram your mind to think, nah, this isn't what black America looks like. They're like from another country and everything. Black America and everything is light skinned black folks. And that curly afro looking hair and everything. So let me give you a couple of examples of some recent people. And I'm like, okay, yeah, it's a black person. I'm like, oh, hey, look, they're light skinned. Oh, look, it's Hollywood doing what it's doing best. Villains of Valley View, like a show that is predominantly white. Oh, by the way, the Mexican boy, he played a white boy in this. Ah, that's Disney for you. But as you can see, there is a black girl in the show. And at first glance, wow, she is very light skinned and everything. And then they had to cast her grandma, so they had to cast somebody within her complexion. Alex from the Runaways, that was a Marvel show, and a pretty good one at that. He is a perfect example, right? This is what his parents look like. You see how dark these black folks are? And here is Alex, as light-skinned as can be. Totally killer. I just got through reviewing that. Go watch that. There's a black girl in this movie, and she happens to be light-skinned and everything. Now, there's also a black dude in this movie who is darker skinned. But guess what, man? Y'all want to know a secret? The dark skinned guy in this is a jerk. A big jerk. He even burped in the girl's face. That's just nasty. He is like, he's part of the friend group, but he's an antagonist for the most part, but he's part of the friends group. And the light-skinned girl is one of our heroes who built the time machine and is trying to help to get the other girl back to her right time. Funny how that is. The light-skinned black girl is like a hero type character, whereas the dark-skinned black guy is like more like a villainous type person. See, they're trying to reprogram your mind. Now, I forget what it's called. I think it's called Time Cut or something like that. It centers, it's another time travel slasher movie, and it centers around that of a black girl. And hey, look at that, she's light skinned and everything. I can't remember what this movie is called. It's actually pretty good. I reviewed it one time. The dark skinned black dude is barely in the show, and you're supposed to perceive him as like a villain, but he's really not. And you have these two light skinned black women who are the center of the movie, and they're light skinned. The I Know What You Did Last Summer movie reboot, revival, whatever you're going to call it, they decided to add a black male character. And this dude is light skinned. I think he's actually biracial and stuff. Scream 5 and 6, they introduced two light-skinned black characters to be part of the main cast. Scream Season 2. As you can see, there is one black character in the entire show, and she happens to be light-skinned. The I Know What You Did Last Summer television show, the only black character is this one girl, and she is light-skinned. Riverdale, you had so many different shades of black. You had either like the biracial looking black light skin, or you had the black light skin, but you never really had a dark black girl. And if there was a dark black character on the show, they would be antagonistic. The two black characters from the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, they are both black, but they are both light-skinned, and one is supposed to be related to the Spellman family, which would mean he's supposed to be half black, half white. And these two people were also in Gen V. And so, like, take the new Gossip Girl reboot. There are so many people of color in that everybody looks caramel. Why? Because no matter what race they are, black or whatever, everybody's around that same light skin complexion. And it's hard, it's kind of like where the dark people at, you know what I'm saying? Oh no, they got erased from like, cinema because they're trying to please to the older fans because this show was originally white and everything. Ned from Nancy Drew. Now he's pretty dark, but he's light skinned dark. You see, the actress who played Mercy in the Titans show, she is light skinned and stuff. And in fact, she was on another show. She was on Free Reign. Now she got cast later on because they casted her daughter first because her daughter is the main character and she is of light skinned complexion. And so it's like you're kind of wondering, oh, okay, then her sister's light skinned and then the mom is light skinned. So it's kind of like, okay, maybe she has like a white daddy or something. Because we see her grandfather is white, but her grandfather is from her mom's side. And it's like, oh, so the mom is mixed as well and everything. And so, Hollywood likes to go for that lighter skin complexion and stuff. Star Trek Picard, this actress, I think she's biracial, I think. I'm not 100% sure. But she was also in Ash versus the Evil Dead season 2, and they just happened to have her be married to that of a white guy. And of course, her daughter had to be a light-skinned complexion as well. The television show The Ex-Wife, the black dude in that, he's super light-skinned and stuff. The actor who played Chet from the Hardy Boys, he's very light skinned, but both his parents are black. Now his dad is much more darker. His mom is a lighter complexion, and she looks like she could be a little mixed or something like that. So yeah, he is black, but he has a much lighter complexion because of that of his mom. The actress from the Umbrella Academy, she is very light skinned. The movie Last Night at Terrence Lane, the actress, the only black actress in this whole movie, she's very light skinned. The lead actress in the Fear Street trilogy, she is light skinned. And what's interesting about her is the boy who plays her brother is very dark skinned. So it's kind of like, how did this happen? How is it her brother is as dark as can be, but yet his sister looks mixed and everything? And I think they're stated as being biological. And so I don't know if they showed their parents in the movie or not, but this is what Hollywood would do. And like I told you with Goosebumps and everything, they will do that. They will have a dark skinned relative, but then have this very light skinned, main lead relative and stuff. Season 2 and Season 3 of the revival of Are You Afraid of the Dark? The one former Disney Channel actress who appears in a couple of newer stuff here and there, and she was in the female-led American Pie movies. And, she is biracial and of a lighter complexion. And I've noticed when she is in the project, sometimes she tends to be the only black person in the movie or say the show. But then sometimes she's normally paired with a much darker skin, Black Star. Like she was in this one television show when she first appeared, and when she was in this movie. Now when she was on Disney Channel, I remember seeing her because she played the president's daughter, and the president was white, but they never showed her mother, I don't think. Well, I never really watched the entirety of the show, but I've never seen her mother. And that is one thing also I pointed out a long time ago. is that when you do have a biracial black person in a television show or movie, one of their parents is always absent. And it is normally the black parent and stuff. For some bizarre reason, that's what Hollywood does. The actress from The Flash, like who played Iris and stuff, she's a lighter complexion. Now, the characters who play her kids don't matter because, Iris married Barry, who is white, had kids by him, so it makes sense why they're lighter complexion. But, this character is white in the comics, so Hollywood went for a more lighter complexion, like, actress to play the role. The Iris from the DCEU, she's a bit more of a lighter complexion as well. And the Goosebumps reboot on Disney Plus. The main lead actor is more light-skinned complexion in season 1, and then in season 2 they added 2 more black people. One is dark and the other is light-skinned. And the thing is, this doesn't just go with live action, it also goes with animation. Like I already talked about this, take the Magic School Bus. I watched that growing up, and the 2 black characters were dark. And when they did the reboot, which the reboot was a revival that's supposed to show a couple of months later from the original series, all of a sudden they got super light skin. And that's Hollywood for you. Hollywood did that so it would not offend the eyes of white people. Be all like, okay, you don't want to see this dark person? Here you go. Here's a nice light-skinned person that looks similar to you. Now let's go all the way back to that of the X-Men movie with Storm, Halle Berry. And I really like Halle Berry as like Storm and everything. She's a good actress. But there was debate about, her race. She is biracial and stuff. And they wanted a dark-skinned Storm, the fans did, because of course, Storm is dark. And because of this, in some of the more recent animated series, they started to lighten up the skin tone of Storm in the animated series in X-Men Evolution, and also that of Wolverine in the X-Men. And the thing about this is that the actress who played younger Storm in the other Fox X-Men movies, see, here's where the problem is coming when people have to be sensitive and stuff. See, they casted another light-skinned looking black person who is also biracial because they had to match the complexion of that of Halle Berry. And this actress actually clapped back because she was starting to get a little hate because of her skin complexion. And because, the problem with this is that Hollywood has caused the problem. Hollywood is literally turning dark-skinned black people and light-skinned black people against each other. Because the thing is, if you're going to see a dark-skinned black person, most likely it's going to be in an all-black show or movie. If it's a predominantly white one, you will mostly see a light-skinned one. Or sometimes they will do both. They'll have both a light and a dark-skinned one. And so, it has caused a lot of tension between the different shades of black when it comes to the black community, because the light-skinned black people are starting to get hated on now, because now they feel like their own community, black people, are turning against them because they feel like they're taking roles from them. And there are even some white people who get angry too, talking about Storm needs to be dark and this and that, so they go after the light-skinned actresses and stuff like that because they want to see that representation as well. Some of them do. And it is a major problem because with the actress from the X-Men First Class movie, who was the younger Storm, she's getting attacked online and it's causing her to attack back. And this is a big problem and everything because now she's starting to feel like she's not welcome, or she's not good enough, or she's not black enough. And people really have to be careful with how they state certain things, you know what I'm saying? And they just need to explain, like, hey, look, it's not you. There's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with your complexion. It's just these characters look a certain way in the comic, and people want that representation because of how Hollywood is and how they cast black people. But nevertheless, they're gonna feel offended by that and everything. Because, like I said before, they would probably love to play these roles and were probably never given a chance to. And so that's gonna be a problem. Like, they are gonna have to they have to understand along with everybody else that representation matters, and they don't want to get pushed to the side because nobody wants to get pushed to the side. But the problem now with a lot of more modern Hollywood stuff is that the darker skinned people are getting pushed aside for the lighter people, and now the dark ones are not being heard. So if there was ever to be like a story in a television show where they had an episode where this black person is being harassed by a white cop only because they're black, it would be kind of odd to see that with a light-skinned black person, especially when they're super, super light in everything, as opposed to that of a dark-skinned one, And, a lot of these light-skinned stars, like let's say when it comes to like Black Panther, Storm, Static, Black Lightning, they have to remember why these characters were created in the first place. They weren't just created just to be created, you know what I'm saying? They had to be created because there was too many white superheroes and they needed to diversify stuff. So one way to diversify it was to include that of a very dark-skinned person. And so this is when, like, when it comes to that actress, I'm like, the younger Storm, I would say like, hey, I get it. You're frustrated. You're angry. People are attacking you, but it's not you. And there's nothing wrong with your skin tone. It's just that this character is supposed to literally look like this for a very special reason. It is supposed to be kind of like this, almost like a mascot, if you will. You know what I'm saying? And I know somebody's going to say, oh, well, what about when a white person gets race bent to black and everything? And for them, I just say, shut the fuck up. Because there are way too many white characters in old Hollywood, old comic books, old books, and this and that. And they need to diversify some stuff, okay? All right, now. Vixen is a great example of this. People don't bring this up with Vixen like they do with Storm. And that's because Vixen is not a huge superhero like Storm is. Also, when it comes to Vixen, Vixen is kind of like the DC version of Storm. She looks like she's from Africa, but she's actually from America. But she wields the powers of many animals, especially African animals and stuff. And in the comics, she's dark. And in Justice League Unlimited, she's pretty dark skin. But for the Arrowverse, they casted 2 actresses with light skin complexion because Hollywood, you know what I'm saying? So when they made a Vixen animated movie, or was it a movie? Was it a television series? I can't remember, but it was good. They lightened up her skin tone and everything to match that of the actress from the television show because it's all connected. So now you're literally having this dark skin complexion character, like complexion, literally erased to fit the Hollywood standard and everything. And that's just wrong. They're literally trying to erase darkness from television and replace it with a lighter complexion to reprogram people's brains into thinking this is what black people are really supposed to look like and stuff. Cyborg is another. In the comics, he's as dark as can be. In the first animated series, he was pretty dark too. Not super dark, but pretty dark. And some people have said, Ray Fisher is pretty light skinned. And he is. And the reason why people never got mad at that is because, unlike Jon Stewart, Cyborg, while a huge character, he's not as big as Jon Stewart. He's popular. He's well known for people who watch like the animated series and stuff. And also like, the television show where he was played by a dark skinned guy. But he's not on the level of Jon Stewart. Jon Stewart is very respected and stuff. And the reason why people are so upset about, I'm finally getting to this whole Jon Stewart thing. The reason why people are so upset and everything is because, one, he's well respected. Two, he's huge because of the animated Justice League series. And three, this is our first time getting a live action Jon Stewart. We've never had one before. We've had multiple animated ones, but we've never had a live action. So when it comes to the first interpretation of him, just like with Black Panther, you want to get it right. You want that level of representation and that level of skin tone because that is what the artist intended, because of the simple fact there weren't that many black superheroes back in the day. Take Black Panther. I read an article that Marvel wanted to give him an American accent or a British accent, and Chadwick Boseman had to fight against that. And this is once again Marvel trying to Americanize or whitewash like their characters, like they did with Banshee and like they did with Colossus and stuff. Finally, the Deadpool movie gave us a Russian sounding Colossus, because in the other X-Men movies he had an American accent, just like Storm. In the deleted scene she had an African accent, but for all those movies her accent was American. Her white hair kept changing with the movies. It was blonde and white in the first movie, then it was pure white in the second, then it was white, gray, and black for the third. Then when they did the younger version, it was back to that yellowish white kind of color. And so you always want to get that character, spot on. She doesn't have blonde hair. She doesn't have gray, white, and black hair. She has white hair and stuff. And so, like, when it comes to Aaron Pierre, I feel bad for this dude because he now the talk of the town and everything, and not the way people wanted to. Now, when I first looked at this dude, I like, okay, he's black. Yeah, he has a bit of a lighter skin complexion, but he's pretty black looking. But he doesn't have that real dark features. And like some of the other people who were like, in the casting and everything, the run up for it and stuff. And I don't remember how he acted, but for the most part, he kind of does look like an amalgamation of the two different Jon Stewarts from the animated series, because Jon Stewart with no goatee had hair on his head, similar the way he does it, and then when he shaved his head bald, then he had the goatee. So for the most part, he is a darker complexion. He's just not as dark as people would hope. Now he could tan. You know what I'm saying? That would be nice if he was like to tan his skin, because that's not blackface. He's just going out in the sun and getting a little dark and everything. I mean, he ain't fish hooking like the Catch Me Outside girl or Alabama Barker and stuff like that, or Ariana Grande and all these other people. He ain't gonna fish hook because he's already that complexion. But, it would have been nicer to have a darker skin like man, you know what I'm saying? And there was plenty of people James Gunn could have like picked, but James Gunn is going to be James Gunn. In case you haven't noticed, like, I'm very shocked and surprised that the Superman cast, and by Superman cast, I don't mean the Justice League International, I mean the actual Superman one. Lois, Superman, Jimmy, Perry, and everything. I'm surprised in Lex. I'm surprised he didn't race bend more of those characters, because he went very old school tradition with that. And I think Perry is the only one he race bent. But guess why? Don't nobody care about Perry White. Who in the world cares about him? Superman's boss, or Clark Kent's boss, I should say. He's rarely in the animated series. He's rarely in the comics. He was rarely ever on the television series, and he was rarely ever in the movies. And that's why James Gunn casted him and everything. That's what I believe and stuff. And so, like, because it just would have been nicer if they would have got like a darker skinned dude, because this is that first time, because he's very much like the Storm. He's a big iconic character, and with those big iconic characters, you have to get them just right and everything. I mean, like, for the longest time, I think people wanted Peter Parker to get race bent to black, and what was it, the Amazing Spider-Man. And Donald Glover was, they wanted Donald Glover, and even Stan Lee didn't care, but, they realized, hey, Spider-Man is not a supporting character. He is that main character, and, this character has to look a certain way because he is that main character and stuff. So they went the smart route by keeping him white in the movie and stuff. Same thing with Tom Holland. And they could just went and race bent like another character, like say Mary Jane, which they did in the MCU. Which in case you didn't notice, hey look, there's another light skinned black girl and everything. I think she's biracial, I think. And so like, and they did the same thing with Ned. And so you can do that with a character like that. But when it's a certain type of character and like a main one that like a big international superhero, sometimes you just can't race bend them. Like Batman, you can't race bend him. Superman, you can't race bend him, because they're too larger than life and everything. And so like, that is why people didn't care about like, Cyborg or Vixen, but they care about John Stewart because he is supposed to be, he's super popular. He was the first Green Lantern I ever saw. Like I didn't know who Hal Jordan was until he popped up in that one episode. I'm like, who the heck is that? And stuff. Kind of like the whole Barry and Flash thing. Like Wally was my first Flash, but now they have brought in the original one, and I'm okay with that. But they've never depicted him with blonde hair, except for that one animated movie. It is the same way with Hal Jordan. John was the first one people know and love. Some people, not everybody, unless you're a hardcore comic book fan. But now they started bringing in more of the Hal Jordan, which I'm totally okay for because, he is the original and stuff. And so when I see a movie with Hal Jordan, I get happy and everything. I'm like, oh, hey, there's the first and everything, So the thing about this, because I want to wrap this up, is like, color always matter. You know what I'm saying? And like, it's not the crap in the faces of light-skinned people, which I wish people would be more gentle when talking to them online about that, because they do tend to go on the attack. But that is built from frustration because they see what Hollywood is doing to them. And the light-skinned black people, some see that and some don't, because they know, hey, they're getting opportunities as well. Because that's the thing, you don't want to not cast a light-skinned black person, because then when you stop doing that, then they're not going to be on screen and everything. There has to be a good mix and everything. That's why it's always good to have one light-skinned black person and one dark-skinned black person in the project. But Hollywood, because they want to reprogram your mind, they always tend to have that light-skinned one front and center and the dark one in the back recurring or be villainous and stuff. And like I said before, casting the right person is crucial. I mean, take Harry Potter. When they did those Harry Potter movies, they had to make sure somebody looked exactly like Harry Potter with the hair and like, other stuff. And But watch, I bet you anything, when that television show rolls around, I bet you Hermione's probably gonna be black to match that of the play, and just to piss off. Well, not really to piss off, but because J.K. Rowling didn't have that many black characters in the Harry Potter series. And once again, don't give me that crap of being all like, see, this is exactly what we've been telling you. When all these black people play all these white roles and they race bin stuff and blah, 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 and blah, 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 and blah, 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 blah. Don't give me that crap. This is not the same thing. And the reason why it is not the same thing is because of the simple fact there are tons of white people in TV shows and movies. Alright? There have been tons of them in the past. There are tons of them now. And all people want is a little representation and to stop having everything look so white. This is why I have a picture of 90210 cast. Look how white this cast is. And this show came out in the 90s. And I used to love watching this show back in the day. It is purely white. So when they made a reboot on the CW, they decided to add some people of color. No, they did not race bin nobody. They just decided to have like their offspring and also new characters. Same thing with Melrose Place. A very extremely white cast except for 2 characters. And at one point they did have a black woman, but they got rid of her very early on and everything. But it was a very white show. So y'all are always represented no matter what. Now they're just trying to change things so that everybody is included. And in case you ever noticed, for the most part, white people's skin, there's different variations, but it's rare. For the most part, white people are just white. You have some that's a little bit more pinkish, some a little bit more reddish. This one actress is a little bit yellow and everything. I don't understand that. I'm not even joking. She has like a yellow complexion, but she's white and stuff like that. Then, of course, you have other people like this one actress named Francesca, who is Italian, but she looks like a white girl with red hair. And so y'all are always represented on television and movies. So don't give me this crap of, oh, it's similar. And see, y'all complaining when it's about black people on coloration, but you don't care when it's about white people. Shut the F up. Seriously. Seriously. You know what it's about. You're just trying to get triggered and you're trying to piss people off. That is all it is. And like I said before, when it comes to that of black people in Hollywood is really pinning black people against black people. They're pinning the dark-skinned black folks against the light-skinned black folks. And it's quite a shame because I've stopped saying and complaining, whenever there's like a light-skinned black person in like a movie or television show. In the past, I would say, see, look, they casted a black person, but they're light-skinned. I've now stopped saying that only because, like I said in the early part of this video, you don't know what that person has been through. And not only that, but there's a good possibility that they feel like outcasts. There's a good possibility they are not accepted by their own, 2 races and stuff. And so you don't want like that whole young Storm thing where she feels like she's not good enough and stuff. So I've stopped complaining about that because I'm feeding into what Hollywood wants, and that is to divide black people and stuff. Not everybody in Hollywood is like that, but come on. Hollywood is way too old school. It's way too old school with tons of old white men, tons of old white women. And while some people are for the diversity and stuff like that, there's still those that are too old school that are kind of like, you know what, we can't have this because it's going to offend people, or I don't want to see that. So I'm just going to cast the most light-skinned person ever just to make people happy. Because there's this one actor who's a disgrace. He's just scummy. He was the Red Mystic Force Red Ranger in Power Rangers. And I think he's Lebanese, I believe. And he has brown skin, like dark brown skin, right? And he revealed just recently at Power Morphicon that the makeup lady, this old white lady, was applying like the makeup on his face. You know, actors have to wear makeup. And he looked at himself and he's all like, did you make me like lighter looking? Did you make me look white? And the woman's like, oh, I didn't realize I did that. She knew she did that. She knew she did that because this dude's dark. All right. Now, Power Rangers have always had dark people on there, but this is when they started filming in New Zealand. And New Zealand, but it pretty much is like every other country when it comes to like dark skinned people. And sometimes they like them, sometimes they don't. And the fact that this dude said she's probably been doing this to tons of people over the decades, making them look lighter on screen. And, you know, they will do that. Like sometimes like when they take a picture of a celebrity, they will lighten their skin. It's not always the lighting. Sometimes they will Photoshop it to look lighter. And that's because they want white people, who is the main driving force of buying stuff, to watch their stuff, buy their stuff, and all kind of stuff like that. It's kind of like how in the Asian market, over in Asian countries, like how so much of their anime characters who's supposed to be Asian, they look white. And that's because, like back in the day, if you watch older anime from like the 80s and stuff like Ronin Warriors, they had a bit of a tan on them. And there was this one character who was half white, half Asian, and she was a lighter complexion. But then around the 90s, when anime started to be more accessible to the Western audience, pretty much every Asian anime character is white, or they have blonde looking hair and everything. And that's because, and it's also with their magazines, they will bleach their skin and everything, or dye their hair blonde. And that's because they're trying to appeal to a Western audience and everything. So, yeah. The entertainment industry, they know what they're doing. Don't ever think they're not. And don't ever think they're not trying to pin dark-skinned people against light-skinned people, because it's working very well for them. Alrighty, well, I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.